Hey guys, my name is David, aka Stockblocks, and this is my 1986 Ford Mustang GT. I'm going to be putting a Gen 3 Coyote in here, hopefully, and independent rear suspension from an 03 Cobra, 03, 04 Cobra, and a bunch of Maximum Motorsports stuff, and really just turning this thing into one of my dream cars. So, anyone who wants to watch and come along with me, feel free, love to have you. It will be a learning experience for me for sure. First thing I'm sure I'll learn is proper lighting. But either way, just stick around. I'll take you kind of through where I'm at with it mentally, and as I get more stuff, maybe a GoPro and everything, I can show you me actually doing the stuff hands-on a little bit easier. And, you know, see if people like it. First thing I'll be starting with is taking out this transmission. I don't know how many miles are on this thing. Obviously she's a little leaky, but she worked pretty good. I was gonna run this setup at the track before I actually started my swap. Sadly, the engine decided to die on me beforehand. It probably could be rebuilt. I think it's just some of the exhaust or the intake valves leaking, but you know, I already had the motor. There's no point in me taking this thing and fixing it when I'm just going to swap it out. So first thing I'm going to start out with is getting this out of my way, and probably next dropping the rear end, but I do want to keep it mobile as long as possible. So transmission, maybe the engine, and we'll go from there. First thing I'm going to start with is dropping this exhaust. That way I can get this out of my way, and then I can take the drive shaft out next. I think that's the best course of attack. Got this part of the exhaust out. That's all I really need for what I'm doing today. So now I'm gonna drop the drive shaft. Got the drive shaft out. There's just 4 of these 12mm 12-point sockets. I just used this little ratchet, but you know, it works. Next thing I'm gonna do is empty out whatever fluid I have inside my transmission, because this is open, so when you tilt it to take it out, it will start dripping fluid out. So gonna want to empty that way you don't get stuff everywhere. All right, now that that's done, there are 4 bolts that hold this onto the bell housing. So I'm gonna get the top 2 out first, and I'll leave these bottom 2 when I have a jack underneath this. I also just had to disconnect whatever pigtails and everything's here, and the speed sensor. So should be pretty easy. Shouldn't be that hard. And these transmissions don't weigh a ton, so I'm gonna do it by myself. I don't think we'll have an issue. Got the top bolt out on each side. Get a good view of that. Top bolt is out on both sides, so in case anyone is wondering, it's a 14 mil. Kind of a pain. I had to use a bunch of extensions and get it back to the like this area to actually get a breaker bar on, and those things were on super tight. So whoever put this thing together definitely over torqued it. But now I'll go ahead and get these little things off the sides and everything, all these sensors out, and then it's just these bolts right here, and then these 2, and then I just gotta slide it back and drop her out. Well, I took the nut out of the other side of both of these bolts, got both of these bottom bolts out. Now I should be able to just take these bolts out of the way, get a jack underneath here, obviously, and slide this thing back, drop it out of my way. Should be pretty easy, I hope. Also, I forgot to mention, I have this old yoke from an old drive shaft just stuck inside of here. That way when I tilt it, it doesn't spill any more fluid. Even though I emptied it, there's still always some residuals. And just like that, transmission is out. So, next thing is gonna be that clutch. You know, by the looks of it, this thing is original, which is impressive. I don't actually know how many miles are on this car. Like most 302s, it's somewhere between 0 and 5 million. But that thing works like butter, so may have some miles on it, but doing good. now that the transmission is out of the way, just got to remove the bell housing. This little clip right here makes it so you can't get this out. Then you just have the bolts that go around. Pretty simple. You should be able to figure this one out. And most of the time those top two are missing, but it seems like I have them. So that's interesting. But either way, I also had the dust cover still, which I've owned a few Foxbodies, and this is the first one to actually have it. And I've actually owned this car for longer than I want to admit without knowing that was here. Mainly because I knew this thing was always going to get swapped with either a Coyote or a 306 or something, so I never paid that much attention to it. But it's there, so cool stuff. Cool to see. I did forget, have to take the starter out. I already had my battery disconnected, and I'm not really worried about any of my existing lines, but just have a bolt here, bolt up top, and then if I remember right, it should just come out, and I'll just let it hang free, because again, this thing's probably OEM, very old stuff, but none of it's being reused. So just take this off, and also remember that you have these two bolts on this side of the flex plate. So you have the bolts that go around, the starter bolts, and these two. Got the bell housing off now, undid the starter, just dangling there. So for me, since I'm planning on just throwing that guy away, next thing I want to do is get the engine out. I'm just going to start out by emptying out my radiator, getting all the fluids out, just to, you know, avoid some of a spill. So I've got an aftermarket radiator, which I don't know if I'll be reusing or not, but regardless, I'll just drain this and probably drain the oil if I have enough room inside of my fluid catch. But now that I got the fluid drained out of this, as much as I could at least, I'm gonna go ahead and start disconnecting hoses. I already took the belt off, you know, and pretty much just start taking everything off of the motor that I need to in order to hoist this thing out. Obviously I'll take the spark plugs and all that jazz off, and probably try and sell some of it. Like the exhaust can be sold. I could probably take this under drive pulley kit and sell it, but you know, got to get your money back somehow. So either way, all this stuff will come off next. I don't think I need to record this honestly and say every specific thing, but pretty much anything that attaches the motor to the car, whether it's a wire or a bolt, has to come loose. And then I actually need to go buy an engine hoist, because doing all this and I don't have a way of getting this out. So since the last time I recorded something, clearly a lot has changed. Like a ton has changed. Took off the seal here, the seam sealer here on both sides to check out the rust. Did a bunch of just, you know, anywhere that I saw that there was missing paint, I would take down to see if there's any rust on it. Overall, the car is actually better than I expected. This side has some rust on the inside, we'll show that later, but I'm gonna have to cut this section out and then weld a new plate in here. It won't be really a chassis rigidity thing by the time I'm done, because I'm gonna have a cage in the car. It doesn't really matter. Currently what I'm actually doing is taking the doors apart, taking everything out, because I have new doors that I may be putting steel doors back on. I may end up going fiberglass, but we'll see when that time comes. Either way, got some more rust here. Again, not going to be like the biggest of deal. The real spot that I have an issue with on this car is over here. And I knew that this was a thing when I bought it, but I didn't know it was quite this bad. So this section, I can probably just do this section because I don't think up here is rusted. I think it's just this little piece. Probably cut this out, put a new plate back in. I don't really need the holes in here anyways, because I don't think I'm gonna be doing power to the doors. I think I'm gonna end up going with shaved doors. Just taking the other doors that I have, if I don't go fiberglass, and just cutting the metal out, putting the glass in place and figuring out how I'm gonna raise and lower them. some way manually. The other doors that I have are from a Arrow Nose Foxbody, and they are manual. So we'll see what I end up doing with that. But so far, she's actually looking pretty dang good. I also took it back to my house, had her up on, I actually just set her down on tires, and I pressure washed this entire thing. I didn't actually scrub anything, but I did pressure wash it just to get all the grime off, because all of this was just caked in oil. Obviously, there's still some. Car's not perfect, but I'll deal with that as we go on. And one other thing that I did that was pretty big is I got a light, so I can actually see in here now a little bit better. So for now, she's actually looking pretty solid. Just sitting here and talking to a camera is a little weird to me. Things don't come out as naturally. But I got a car. And maybe a video.